What I haven't done is just say, Ray, you're the person who's been instrumental in building all of this. Like, here's some money. I quite like what you're doing. Off you go. Actually, it's a full-blown, fully fledged partnership where we each have our own roles. My role is to enhance the networking, the sponsorships, add value, do you know what I mean? And look at enhancing the relationships that we have with the gyms in the UK in general.
Yeah.
And help us expand into new markets. And also just sort of supplementary things like one of our markets, we have the bar. And obviously you can well imagine that having the bar is something that is infinitely...
People like to drink. You know? People love to drink.
UK people do love a little bit of a tipple on a Saturday night when there's some fights happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they definitely do. So, man, we both run businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Let's share our experiences, like what we found, like stuff that if you want to sell more of the thing that you sell, what are some of the stuff that you can do, whether it's subscribers, real life members, digital products, whatever it is. I thought it'd be great. Let's just run through some stuff that we've learned practically that physically helps in the process. So you run a few different businesses. One's like an MMA gym.
Yep.
Kick us off with one thing in particular that like you think is like maybe a non-obvious insight that people could take as a principle to like either increase more sales or just sell more stuff.
Yeah, a non-obvious insight is that actually, like, the perception that you have on social media might not be what you think it is. So let me expand into that. So one of the things that I sought to do with the MMA gym, like, if I can't give out the highest quality that I possibly can in an industry, I'm just not going to work in it, man. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. So for the gym that I run, like, you just called it an MMA gym, and like that's the truth. It is an MMA gym, but it's also a jiu-jitsu gym, and it's also a striking gym. And the problem that we initially had, and still have to a degree a little bit, is from the outside looking in, like, we are an MMA gym. We have like professional fighters, we have amateur fighters. But hold on a minute, we've got 3 black belts. We've got a female black belt called Yulia. We've got a male black belt called Josh, and I've got myself, who's Liam Khan. And like, there is 45 plus years of experience just on the mat. We've got a brown belt who coaches called Steve's one of the most technical geniuses you're ever going to come across. You know, and then when it comes to striking, we've got a 5 times world Thai boxing champion coaching the striking side of things. So, you know, you've got a 5-time world Thai boxing champion. So are you a striking gym? Well, yes, we are. You've got like championship level grappling. Are you a grappling gym? Well, yes, we are. I mean, you've got like a MMA coaching that goes up to the UFC level. Are you an MMA gym? Well, yes, we are. But when you are in 3 to 4 different markets like that, it's harder to say, well, we are this, you know. And so on social media, obviously we like to shout about the things that we do super well, but from that perspective here, we've actually seen a slightly lower uptick in some of the grappling centric sports like gi, and people who, you know, majority of people who come to try out our place are MMA. And what's interesting about that is that we have competitors in the local area who are only grappling, and I've even heard people think like, oh, we should go to that competitor because I want to learn grappling.
So I get
grappling central,
grappling gym,
absolutely,
right?
And it's regardless of the fact that our standards, and I have no problem saying this, the standards of our tuition are higher. Like, that's what we do. You know, we're like, even on the fundamental level, you know, we're not like following a curriculum made by somebody else. We're all elite and we all compete and all the rest of it. So when it comes to the fundamentals, we all know fundamentals are what win fights. So even our fundamentals are at that high level, and yet the competition comes from the idea that, you know, well, how can you do 4 things well compared to somebody doing 1 thing well? You
see, that's it. When you say that, what I hear is positioning.
Absolutely.
Is really important. And I can tell you that we've probably spent hundreds of thousands of pounds getting positioning wrong. And I feel when you start a business, you're hungry, you're enthusiastic, you have to be of that mindset.
Absolutely.
To even get in the game in the first place. And one of the things that I've learned that's quite similar to that is that sometimes less is more. Like, you actually don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to think of a new everlasting gobstopper or some crazy thing to make a lot of money. If you just did something that everyone else had done, but you nailed down the basics, that's really key. One of the things that we found is actually simplicity is key. Not trying to say, oh, we do this, and also we shine your shoes, and then we'll do valets, and we'll do SEO services, and we'll sell mics, and we'll do this. It's like way too much. You need to be able to deliver on the product. You need to be able to, well, in fact, I'm going to go over places because I've got a lot to say on the topic, but I think one of the key priorities of anyone starting a business that you have to establish is a repeatable, reliable way to acquire new customers.
Yep.
If you don't have a repeatable way to acquire new customers, you don't have a business. So
Absolutely.
if I was investing in the business, one of the things I'd say is, great, how are you acquiring customers? And is that repeatable? And second of all, is it scalable? Because someone comes to sell me a business and they can't show me how I get another member, and they can't demonstrate to me this works because of X, Y, and Z, and here's how we're going. I don't think it's investable business.
Couldn't agree more. And as well, it's also thinking about the reason your customers are coming to you in the first place. And from our side of things, like, they're not coming primarily because they think they want to be UFC champion. They're coming for reasons like, today's culture is lonely, man, and they want a community. They're coming because they want to get over the insecurity of not being able to defend themselves. They're coming because they're intrigued. Maybe they've watched the UFC and they just want to know what's going on. Like, it's really important to recognize what it is that a customer is coming for. And like you say, imagine yourself as being specific. And another one of our competitors has had some really, really cool competition success recently. And they've been shouting from the rooftops about that competition success. And, you know, more power to you. But the average beginner doesn't care whether you are UFC champ or not, really, you know, because at the end of the day, like, although those accolades are nice, like, that doesn't help them in any way.
It doesn't. And I feel like part of the skill set of growing a business and entrepreneur and startup is, of all the billions of things that you could be doing and that matter, actually, what are the 3 or 4 that lean into the Pareto principle of these 4 or 5 actions will get you 90% of the results? Some things are nice to have, some things are essential. And the 2 problem statements is, number 1 is, do I know what I need to do to get to the next level? If you do, then it's just an execution problem. If you don't, if you can't identify what the problems are, you need to take a step back and get perspective.
100%.
Any problem you face in business, someone else has faced before. That's a great news.
Absolutely.
And I like to see, I see it as a pipe, as a series of pipes, and you just got a blockage somewhere. And like these problems, like, you know, we always say new levels, new devils, right? Like, even when you 10x the business size, I can tell you got a lot of other problems that come with it and stuff. And it's like, business is, I actually genuinely think, a science. And it's like a skill like jiu-jitsu, where like everyone thinks that the 2 things that everyone can do is fight and run a business. Like, if I said to you, go and dunk on LeBron James, you'd say, no chance, I know how to play basketball. If you asked someone, do you know how to fight? So yeah, of course I do. Or I could run a business. Dude, it definitely is a skill, and you've got to pay down your ignorance debt as much as you can and get experience with it.
I think that is the absolute key point to what you're saying there. Like, the similarities between business and jiu-jitsu, and the similarities between business and science is the right answer for the moment is built off the back of so much failure, man. You know, it's test and measure, and obviously it's, you know, it's guided failure. You know, you're not looking to, you don't want to fail, but, you know, it's like, should I run ads? It's like, yes, you should, but you shouldn't run ads if you're not split testing them.
Yeah.
Because if you run an ad and it has some success, you've got no idea whether you're leaving money on the table or whether you've hit gold. Do you know what I mean? Like this type of, like, having this idea of trying to progress without trying to iterate, that's the key. Like, the guys who seem to do super, super well, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's science, whether it's business, they tend to be the guys that have a go and they try something, and if that works, cool, we keep that. If it doesn't, cool, we move away from that.
I love that. It's a little speed running failure. Like, oh, it doesn't work if I don't get the unlock. Oh, it doesn't work if I didn't work right. You've got to speed run failure and make each failure as uncostly as humanly possible, which is why we talk about minimal viable product, cheapest, fastest way of doing it. And if I had to summarize that into actual practical stuff, like, I read a whole list of, like, consumer psychological principles. I had like 40 of them, actually.
Okay.
And I completely re-engineered our entire journey based on these 40 psychological principles to see how we could understand it. And the product that we sell isn't so in marketing we talk about push-pull. Like, pull would be a product that, let's talk about Coke, right? You may buy Dandelion and Burdock, you buy Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, Pepsi. You're already aware of what Coke is. You're just deciding, well, which Coke do I buy or which gym do I go to? Then you have push marketing, which is, I have this service I didn't know existed anymore. Yep. So you're having to educate the consumer about it. So once you know which of those 2 categories you sit in, I give some really practical stuff that I wish I knew when I started. One of them is, I love this principle. It's called the principle of risk reversal, basically. Actually, let me start with the one, damaging emissions. Damaging emissions is the example that you often give is, you're buying a car online, okay? And let's say you're buying a car for £10,000. And you're on a website, you know, you're not really sure, is it legit, is it not legit? You go through the process, you get to the end of it, and they say, oh, and by the way, Liam, this car that you're buying, I just want you to know that it's got a scratch on the back left-hand side of it. This tire's going to need replacing in the next 1,000 miles, and it's had a replacement air filter for the last 3 months. How does that change your perception of how trustworthy the website is?
Yeah, I mean, it actually adds to the trust.
It adds trust. And we call this, like, basically the idea is that you admit some negatives about the product of a service that make you sound very trustworthy in the eyes of the prospect, but the negatives aren't so great so as to affect the purchase decision of the client. It's a trust builder. And actually, a lot of salespeople do this, and they'll say, look, to be honest with you, if you're looking for calories, it's not going to hit it. But in terms of protein, it's off the chart. It's a damaging admission. How can you admit a negative about the product to build trust with the prospect to get them to buy it?
It's the age-old example of the waiter coming and saying, actually, I don't recommend the most expensive wine. It's a bit bad, this batch. I would go with the less expensive option.
Exactly.
And then they get the tip.
Genius, yeah. And when you know them, you see them everywhere, right?
Absolutely. Even in self-deprecating humor in the way that people just talk to each other. You know, I mean, a little bit of self-deprecating humor, it builds trust because this guy's not going to be a dick if he can have a laugh at himself.
Exactly. He knows it's not great at X, therefore I trust his judgment on something as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and then the other bit I'll add, because I'm pretty sure we're going like an hour with this, but is Cognitive Strain. There's a book called Don't Make Me Think, and it's one of the best books ever. And the idea is if you go through a process, you want to activate someone's chin brain, the system 1 thinking, which is
100%.
I shouldn't have to think or engage my cognition at any point during the process.
Yeah.
You use too complicated languages, it isn't intuitive, you're going to lose conversions on it.
100%, and this like harkens back to what we were saying for my business, which is essentially like the moment that it's not like you are this, that is easy. Do I want this? Yes or no. The moment is like, are you this or are you that? You know what I mean? There's too much work. You know what I mean? People's attention span not enough for that. On to the next thing.